our sports unity, our special needs kids. So I mention all that because the person I'm about to introduce has inspired me to do all that. So I just wanted to get that out there. But before I do bring up Gina, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I want to thank you for your generosity. All the proceeds for tonight go to our 18U Showcase team. And you know, there's a lot of cost with 18U Showcase, so we appreciate your generosity and be as generous as you can. I know we heard from Callie earlier, and I'd really like to recognize my fellow Thunder coaches at the 18U level, Callie Cipolla and Howard Bromberg and Danny Dinsfriend. They really put this evening together and the events this night and tomorrow, so we can give a round of applause to I'd also like to recognize Neil Dinsfriend, who is the Director of Marketing and Sales here at the Crown. Neil is a longtime Thunder coach, and he and his staff really go out of their way to help us at every event. Thank you, Neil. Much appreciated. So 14 years ago, I was a first-year assistant baseball coach in the Marlton Rec League. And that's when I met 11-year-old Gina McCool. Gina was this short, stocky female athlete, the only girl on our team and the only girl in the entire league. Gina had just lost her dad, who passed away suddenly, and yet she was the first player to come out to the games, to arrive at the fields every day. And she was usually the last to stay. Very often she would ask me to stay just a little bit longer to help her with her backhand, with her pitching motion. And I was all too happy to do that. That year, Gina was the first player I connected with on that level who wasn't my own child. And that year, we made it to the championship game. It was over at Kessler Field. It was a 1-1 tie going into the 7th inning. And the head coach, Mike Fallon, turned to me, knowing he had to take his son out of the game who was pitching. And he said, "What do we do now?" And I said, "Give the ball to Gina. She'll win this for us." And he did. And Gina pitched like she had an angel on her shoulder that day. And I believe she did. She struck out the first 2 batters, got us out of the inning, and we won it with a walk-off homer in the bottom of the 7th. It was pure jubilation. Gina was the reason I became a head coach. So the following year, I found myself at this long table at MRC with 7 other head coaches. And each of us had a printout of 220 players, all ranked. We put our names in a hat to see who would select for the first pick of the draft, and as luck would have it, I got the first pick. And I didn't pick my son, I picked Gina. And 7 mouths dropped open. One coach blurted out, "Oh my God, he doesn't know what he's doing." Later in the draft, they gave me a good player because they didn't think we would compete that year, but compete we did. Gina went on to hit 640 for us that year. I think she would have hit 800 if she had any speed, but speed isn't the best part of Gina's game. But she was our leader on and off the field. She picked up everyone around her. She made them all better players. And she was our best pitcher, shortstop, everything. And she was just a joy to coach. And that was just year 1. So the following year we come back and I made Gina my #1 pick again. And a week after I selected her, she called me. And she said, "Hey, Mr. Lynch, I've got a question for you. I need your advice." She said, "I'd really like to try out for the Cherokee High School baseball team. But I'm not sure that the coaches are going to accept me. At least that's what everyone's telling me. What should I do?" And I said, "Gina, I've coached you for the last 2 years, and I know you're good enough to play for that team, but I don't know what those coaches are going to do. You can't control that. But if you don't try out, you're always going to regret it. So go, do your best, have fun, and we'll see what happens. Just let me know what happens." And a week later, Gina called me, and she said, "Hey, Mr. Lynch, I just wanted you to know I made the team." And I phone down. I had to put the phone down because I was so choked up that I couldn't talk. I had never been more proud of anyone. Gina was just phenomenal. She played 2 years of high school baseball and 2 more years of Babe Ruth ball for me before she switched over to softball, and she played for Cherokee High School and our Thunder program. She opened up a lot of eyes, and she earned a full ride to Division I Rider University. When Gina was at Rider, she volunteered her time. She came back. She was an assistant coach for us. Our girls loved her. Anytime she came out to our practice or our games, she was just fantastic, and she was just awesome. It was around that time when Gina's mom became ill, and Gina was now captain of her team. She was earning top grades. She was volunteering to help us, and she was taking care of her mom full time. And I know that our players were really inspired by her. In fact, it was Danny Dinsfriend who created a T-shirt at that time to honor Gina and her mother. It had the Thunder family on the front with our logo, and it had the word "believe" on the back with the cancer symbol. The word "believe" because Gina would come and talk to our players and tell them, believe in yourself, and good things will happen. And we went out and sold dozens and dozens of shirts and gave the proceeds to Gina. I think it was the only time I really saw her speechless. And when her mom passed, we were there for her at the funeral to support her, but Gina was really the one who picked us up that day. She gave an inspiring eulogy to let us know that she would be just fine. Gina graduated from Rider University with honors, and her first job out of college was assistant softball coach for Division I Army at West Point. Not too bad. And she still managed to make time to come back and help us, to help me, our team, and the program. Gina called me this summer and said, "Hey, Mr. Lynch, I'm not sure if you heard, but I was just hired by St. Joe's University. And since I'm going to be back in the neighborhood, let me know how I can help and work with the kids, and I'll do anything I can." There are people who come into our lives, sometimes for a very short time, who have a tremendous impact. 11-year-old Gina McCool had no way of knowing 14 years ago what kind of impact she would have on me and our program. Back at the time, I had no designs to become a head coach. I had 4 children, all of whom played multiple sports, all of whom played year-round travel sports, and I had a built-in excuse that I was too busy. And that was a true excuse, but it wasn't the main excuse. The main excuse was I was afraid to coach. I had such anxiety about groups and about speaking and about public speaking that it was difficult for me to talk to a team before and after a game. And it was like traumatic for me to talk to a team and their parents. And if you were to tell me 14 years ago that I would go on to become a head coach, and I would go on to become a travel coach, and I would lead teams in tournaments all up and down the East Coast, from Florida to New Hampshire. If you were to tell me I would become a travel coordinator and lead groups that would help us run our biggest tournaments to date, and if you were to tell me I'd become a softball commissioner where I'd oversee 400 plus players and 180 volunteers year after year with all the trainings and communications and hand-holding and speeches, and if you were to tell me I'd be standing here tonight speaking from the heart to 100 plus people, I would have said, there's no way that's going to happen. It's not in me, I can't do that. But 14 years ago, I met this incredible young athlete, and I mentioned that she had just lost her dad and it was this boys' league. But what I didn't mention is how difficult it must have been for her. There were coaches that did not want her to play in that league. There were players who mocked her on the other team. There were pitchers who threw at her. There were parents who shouted, "Go home and go play softball" at her. And she answered it all with a smile. And she showed them all with her glove and her arm and her bat, every occasion that she belonged, and she was not only belonged, but was one of the best out there. And I thought, if she could do all that at every occasion, if she could help everyone around her become better players and better teammates, that I need to do more. I need to step up. I need to get beyond these insecurities and fears, and I need to help more kids. And that's just gone on year after year now. And I've struggled at times. It's not easy for me to do this kind of thing. But every time I've thought of Gina and what she went through, and it's inspired me, and she still continues to inspire me today. So I just wanted to share that story. Gina's a special person, and she's influenced not only me, been a big influence on me, but many young women in our program. And everything comes full circle for me tonight, because players that I coached are now coming back to Thunder and helping out because they want to give back. And tonight I get to introduce you to someone who's just extremely special to me. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce my player and my coach and my friend, the inspirational Coach Gina McCool.